Coming up on Tech News Weekly, Jason Howell and I start out the conversation today by talking to Sarah LeBoeuf of GameDaily.biz about the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. Sarah was also at the Walkout and told us a little bit about that event. Then we talked to Janko Roettgers of Protocol about Facebook's Metaverse and that virtual reality world in general. Before we round things out with our stories of the week, including an Oculus recall and a new study by the Journal of Adolescence, it talks about loneliness among teenagers. All that coming up on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 194, recorded Thursday, July 29th, 2021. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Checkout.com. Modern businesses need flexible payment systems that can help them adapt to change, grow, and scale fast. Checkout.com is a leading cloud-based global payment solutions provider. Request a free, no-commitment demo at checkout.com/TNW.
And by Endava. Subscribe and listen to Tech Reimagined, the podcast from Endava, from wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And on the other side of the screen, I'm the other one, Jason Howell.
Hello, Jason.
Hi.
I'm digging that shirt today.
Oh, right on. Excellent.
Cool
so
shirt.
am I. It's. I mean, no one would know this, but it's really comfortable. It's like a nice, cozy shirt.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for noticing.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We have a really interesting show today with some kind of news that's still going on. And so this first piece, you may have heard about the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. I think it was earlier this week, earlier last week, rather. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard that was surrounding the, quote, frat boy culture that is pervasive at the company and is looking for I think some very reasonable requests for reparation to go along with that. And since then, there have been many a story that have kind of filtered out, and a couple of things that have been going on, including a walkout at the company. Joining us today from GameDaily.biz is Sarah LeBoeuf, who is here to talk to us about kind of everything that's going on and who was present at this walkout. So thank you for joining us today, Sarah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are happy to have you here. Now, of course, I think many of the listeners out there are aware of this lawsuit, but for the sake of kind of everybody, could you kind of describe what's going on here in terms of the lawsuit itself, what the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing alleges, and kind of what has happened since that lawsuit first came out?
Sure. So the lawsuit basically is calling Activision Blizzard out over extremely unacceptable behavior towards women in particular, but also other marginalized groups. Basically, anyone who is not a straight white dude. And there are reports of the frat boy culture, which include male employees getting drunk at work and going to the cubicles of various female employees. Harassment, women being held back from promotions, a lack of women in leadership. These claims are going back, years. This lawsuit comes at the end of a 2-year investigation. Mm-hmm. So that's what sparked the walkout that took place yesterday.
Yeah. So, of course, there were, as you said, the 2-year investigation. This involved quite a bit of research and looking into things. And many of the things were listed, including cube crawls, where you would have male employees becoming intoxicated and going from cubicle to cubicle, harassing folks. You had male employees playing video games and then passing off their work to female employees, all sorts of discrimination, women being kicked out, or I should say people who need lactation rooms being kicked out of those lactation rooms for the sake of men who wanted to host meetings there. And then there have been some more stories that have continued to creep out. Before we get to those stories, though, I was hoping that you could give us kind of a quick summary of what the reaction of Activision Blizzard has been, what the reaction of some of its leadership has been after this lawsuit was, made public. What is Activision Blizzard saying about all of this?
Several members of senior leadership, including CEO Bobby Kotick, have made statements about what happened, and mostly it's very much, wow, we're sorry this is happening, and we don't want this to happen anymore. I think the general feeling from the employees that I saw yesterday was that these statements did not do enough. They're not meeting the employee demands. It's a little concerning that Kotick hired a union-busting law firm to conduct an external investigation into the company. And then Fran Townsend, who's an executive VP who just joined the company in March, released a statement that's saying that, basically the claims were baseless or outdated. And that really didn't sit well with the other employees. So I think that the general vibe is that executive leadership has not done enough to address this and make real change yet.
Yeah, absolutely. The lawsuit from the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, it seeks an injunction forcing compliance with workplace protections, unpaid wages, pay adjustments, back pay, and lost wages and benefits for female employees. On the other hand, we have, you quote in your article, the walkout organizers, what they have released as their demands. This was sent to Polygon and several other media outlets. Can you talk about what the folks are asking for, what they would like to see happen? You kind of list these as 1, 2, 3, and 4 here in your piece.
Yes. The first demand is an end to mandatory arbitration. This is a big one for Activision employees, and it's actually been a big issue elsewhere in the gaming industry as well. Companies tend to use arbitration clauses to protect themselves, and the employees feel that these clauses also protect abusers and limit the ability of victims to seek restitution. So that's the first point, and that hasn't been addressed by any of the senior leadership at Blizzard yet. They want hiring, interviewing, recruiting, promoting to follow diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines. They want women of color, transgender women, non-binary people, and other marginalized groups to be fairly hired and promoted into new roles that they deserve to be in. The third point is the publication of salary data so that employees can discuss and look at their salary data and know if they're being paid fairly or if they're maybe being paid less because they're a woman or a person of color, other marginalized groups. And then the fourth thing they want is a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force to hire a third party to audit Activision Blizzard's reporting structure, HR, and executive staff, because clearly no internal investigation conducted by executive leadership is going to do this themselves.
Right. This is, of course, as we've discussed here, an ongoing situation, particularly as more folks feel empowered or able to come forward with some of the other stories that have taken place. There was a really horrific story. It was published in Kotaku, of one of the places, about an ongoing location called the Bill Cosby Suite, in which a lot of these alleged abusers would kind of gather, and then also conversation of a group of folks who, in many cases, are alleged abusers, also communicating. And I think that we're going to, as we've seen, continue to see these stories kind of go on. But before we have to say goodbye, I was hoping that you could share a little bit about your experience at the Walkout, kind of what it was like there, if you were able to talk to some folks and kind of see what was going on with your boots on the ground, so to speak.
The walkout was really well organized and really inspiring. The mood was actually apprehensive but hopeful. There's definitely a lot of fear of retaliation, so the people I did talk to wanted to be anonymous. I was told that everyone who attended was taking an enormous risk. Activision Blizzard does have a long history of brutal layoffs, so I don't blame anyone for being concerned about that. But yeah, they're really just hoping this is the first step in a long process. So it's not about, this being like a one and done thing to fix all the issues, but I think we can continue to see more events like this and more people speaking out. And like you said, once people start speaking out, others feel empowered to come out with their own stories. So I believe we are going to see more stories trickling out, not just about Activision Blizzard, but other publishers and industry companies as well, because this is not just about one company. This is happening all over the industry. Several other big publishers have come under fire in recent years for similar things. And the story about the Cosby Room broke during the walkout yesterday. And, even despite that, I think what the employees want is just to be able to work with senior leadership to make the company a better place. And they stressed over and over again how they believe in Blizzard values. And one of those values is that every voice matters. But they feel like executives have lost those values and they want to help them find their way back.
Yeah, I was shocked in reading your piece, the way that you started it. Every voice matters being one of their 8 core values. This suggests otherwise. Sarah LeBoeuf, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Of course, people can head over to GameDaily.biz to check out your piece. But if they would like to follow you online and keep up with the great work that you're doing, where should they go to do so?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Sarah the Beef. That's all one word. Sarah, my first name, the Beef, which is what my last name means in French.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. Up next, we're going to talk a little bit about the metaverse because it's coming. Maybe not for a very long time, but it's coming nonetheless. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Checkout.com. Tech shouldn't stifle innovation. Traditional payment systems, they're heavily layered, disconnected. They're perceived as a cost center to a business. And modern businesses need flexible payment systems that can help them adapt to change, grow, and scale fast. They need all those things. We recently came across a company with technology that approaches payments through a radical new lens. It's called Checkout.com. Checkout.com partnered with Oxford Economics. They conducted an end-to-end analysis of the payments value chain for merchants. And last year alone, false declines cost the UK, the US, French, and German markets $20.3 billion. $12.7 billion went to competitors and $7.6 billion was entirely written off. That's no small change. The study found that merchants are not currently optimizing the customer's significant willingness to pay for speed, pay for convenience, security online, all that stuff. The majority of merchants surveyed don't even feel that their payments data is informing their business strategy or their innovation. And 56% of customers surveyed said they will not return to a site because they do not offer their preferred payment method. I've certainly experienced that. Most merchants spend more than 10% of their payments budgets on fixing disputes, fixing fraud and outages, that sort of stuff. CEOs are more likely to overestimate the quality of data returned to them by payment providers. CEOs also tend to underestimate the extent to which disconnected payments are hindering growth. And most merchants actually focus on the per transaction cost of their payments. And when they're doing that, they're totally ignoring the back end costs that are associated with that. Checkout.com is a leading cloud-based global payment solutions provider. Checkout's payment platform is purpose-built with simplicity, with scalability, with speed, all in mind. It's ideal for merchants who are looking to seamlessly integrate better payment solutions globally. And Checkout.com offers a number of things, including improved acceptance globally, better and more actionable granular data. So really detailed data there, a flexible product structure that merchants can adapt to their needs, and it's combined with truly personal white glove service. And that right there is why brands across the globe, brands you've heard of, Pizza Hut, TransferWise, Klarna, Revolut, Samsung, they all trust Checkout.com. And you're going to love Checkout.com too. We've been looking at Checkout.com. We love what they offer in the payment space and beyond. So check it out for yourself. Check out Checkout.com. Checkout.com is the dominant choice for organizations that are looking for the fastest, most innovative, and reliable global payment solution provider. You can request a free, no-commitment demo at checkout.com/TNW. That's checkout.com/TNW for a free demo. And the URL one more time, checkout.com/TNW. Take a look for yourself. And we thank checkout.com for their support of Tech News Weekly. All right, the Metaverse. This is just something that is super interesting to me, super appealing to me, not because I'm a Snow Crash fan, because I've never actually read the book, but Metaverse is definitely a topic of Snow Crash, and concepts of the Metaverse we see in all sorts of other ways in science fiction. Ready Player One kind of, touches on this a number of different ways across science fiction, to the point to where people who are fans of science fiction at this point just kind of assume and understand that at some point we're going to have some sort of Metaverse to point to and to live inside of, or whatever that's going to be. And I think Facebook feels like they are the company to make it happen. At least that's what Zuckerberg has been saying. So we brought Janko Roettgers from Protocol to join us and talk a little bit about the Metaverse and Facebook's vision of it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So for those like me who have never read the book, although I'm thinking like 99% of TWiT fans have probably read Snow Crash, I still have not. It's okay. I will one of these days. I'll get around to it. But anyways, Metaverse plays highly in this. Talk a little bit about what the Metaverse is as we kind of understand it right now, and as it's kind of evolving, and really kind of how that differs or compares to things that we do have right now, like VR, augmented reality, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so the Metaverse, in short, is sort of a virtual online space where you use avatars to meet people, hang out with your friends, play games, maybe attend concerts or events and all kinds of these fun things. And at some point, maybe even work and do more tedious stuff. And it has its roots, the idea has its roots in science fiction, like Snow Crash or like Ready Player One. And for people who haven't read those, Ready Player One, obviously there's a movie out there too, if you want to catch up on it really quick. But in those books, the Metaverse is very much connected to some version of VR, where people put on these goggles and then they're transported in these crazy virtual spaces and out of whatever hellscape they live in the real world. And I think that has led a little bit to people confusing VR with the Metaverse. But in reality, if I have an Oculus Quest right now and I put that on to just play Beat Saber by myself, that's not the Metaverse. It's just a different version of gaming, right? The Metaverse is more a social sphere. And at the same time, I think the thinking has evolved a little bit about what the metaverse truly can be beyond science fiction. And people have looked at things like Fortnite or things like Roblox and realized, well, those are games or gaming environments, but we go also in these worlds and we have our own avatars and we hang out and there's concerts in Fortnite and in Roblox there's a whole economy. So those are in a way also early versions of a metaverse, even without VR.
So then we have, Facebook, who we're going to talk a lot about right now in relation to the metaverse. But Facebook has, they bought Oculus however many years ago at this point. Was it 5 years ago? I can't remember, lost track. But they bought Oculus. And then they also have a product called Horizon, which really seems to be kind of like the sandwiching of Facebook's social platform into a VR space. So to a certain degree, it sounds like Horizon is kind of what you're talking about, or is the metaverse something even more than that?
Well, first of all, the metaverse only exists as much as there's people there, and Horizon right now is sort of a private beta still that's invite only.
Fair enough.
And it kind of shows how hard it is to follow up and follow through with this vision to build something like that. Facebook, again, they bought Oculus a number of years ago. They've been trying to make this technology social for some time. If people who followed that closely may have seen, there was like Oculus venues, Oculus rooms, and all kinds of other things where they try to figure out what do you actually want to do there when you meet with people in VR and what's not creepy and how can we make this experience actually pleasure and nice for people. And it turns out to be surprisingly hard, right? So I think that's why they have been iterating on these things and why Horizon is not public yet. I would expect that maybe later this year they're going to open this up more widely. But yeah, they're still kind of chipping away on that vision. The new thing is that Facebook really has been coming out, or Facebook executives have been coming out and saying, this is really where we want to go as a company.
Yeah, exactly. Mark Zuckerberg, just in the earnings call this week, said something along the lines of moving away from being not just a social media company, but a metaverse company, and referring to the metaverse as like the next evolution. Right now, we're in the mobile internet world, and that the metaverse is going to be the next thing. What else did he have to say about it? Because that's perhaps the most direct kind of mention that's happened, and during an earnings call, no doubt. So he's talking to investors and saying, hey, we're betting big on this thing called a metaverse. What other information did he share in that call about this?
Yeah, because it was an investor call. Investors want to know, how much is that going to cost? Yeah. And how much money are we going to make with this? Or how much money are you going to make us with it? And Zuckerberg was sort of vague on both fronts. He did, or Facebook's CFO also did reiterate that the company has spent billions and continues to spend billions on AR and VR, which are really more access technologies for something like the metaverse, right? So basically they came out and said, this is going to be a significant investment. So it is going to be expensive, but we are going to make money with it, and many other companies are going to make money with it in the long run as well. But still very short on the details there.
Yeah, and I think in the long run is the detail that's really kind of a big question mark. How long does it take to create a metaverse that satisfies what Facebook's vision is? Right now, you pointed out in one of your articles that their AR and VR team already is around 10,000 people. That just blows my mind to think about that many people with their mind on AR and VR. Meanwhile, augmented reality, virtual reality, both things are technologies that we've been hearing over the past handful of years are the next big thing, or a big deal. And yet, when you look at kind of the fruits of all of that labor, it's still pretty marginal compared to a whole lot of other things in the world of technology. Yet they have 10,000 people working on this. So, I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind that Facebook is going all in on this. Have they talked at all about the business model driving the metaverse? Are they and maybe this is something that is more conjecture than anything, but would they be taking what's working on Facebook now and throwing ads on virtual billboards everywhere because ads work on Facebook? Is that what's going to drive the metaverse, do you think?
Zuckerberg did say during the call that ads could be one way to monetize this, but he was again short on details, and I think for a reason, because people are very sensitive to this idea. If you have Facebook ads displayed on your phone, it's sort of something you can scroll over. If you have something like in your face, really, on your headset, maybe that's much more invasive, obviously.
Yeah,
and
intrusive.
early trials there's been a significant backlash against it. So one other thing he brought up during the call yesterday was that there may be a creator economy based on this. So people may build things, they may sell customized avatars, they may sell experiences. And I think there's something to that. We have seen, like during the pandemic, people paying for virtual concerts and stuff like that. And a lot of this is still very rudimentary, right? I pay a ticket and then I get to watch a Zoom call, which is not that great of an experience, but it is something. But if you could imagine in the future maybe attending a concert of your favorite band with your avatar, with your friends who may not be in the same room as you, but you can all hang out together, and it's a good social experience. I could see people pay money for that. So Facebook would probably want to have a cut of that. And ultimately, I think there's also a part where Oculus, the VR efforts, there's an Oculus store right now. So Facebook charges software developers fees to sell their games to VR users. They could in the future also sell maybe operators of other metaverse instances or parts of this metaverse fees for driving audiences to them.
Yeah, your previous point about, selling in-game, or not in-game, I guess Metaverse wouldn't necessarily be a game, it would be a way of life, but selling in experience, be it avatars or experiences or whatever, that actually there's a deep correlation between what we're seeing now in apps like you mentioned Roblox, what is the VR version of Roblox that's on Oculus that is free? What is it? I can't remember off the top of my head. But there are a lot of apps that do this. And but I mean, the flip side of that is a lot of those apps, they're free. Like, they're free for users, but people are paying to upgrade their avatar. My girls, they're constantly asking me, can I have some money for Roblox so I can, get this thing for my avatar? And it may seem silly, but there's a heck of a lot of people willing to pay money for it, and a lot of money to be made. So
for sure,
I could absolutely see that. What do you think that Zuckerberg had the metaverse in mind when Facebook bought Oculus? I know that from very early on, he was talking about the acquisition in the sense of having some sort of a virtual representation of Facebook. But was that this metaverse thing that he's talking about now, or is this just the evolution of that thinking?
I mean, I think Facebook always wanted to make VR social. Mm-hmm. How to do that has been the challenge for the company. Again, they've tried multiple things, and them framing that as the metaverse now, I think that it's part of it is just because the term has become trendy.
Right.
So they're jumping onto that, obviously. Yeah. But I think it's also a realization that, maybe we cannot just build this in VR. Maybe we need to find some gateways. Maybe we need to allow people to also access it through mobile phones. Maybe it's a world where, some people join it with VR headsets, some people at some point may have AR glasses, and some people are still on their phones. And that sort of touches more onto these things like Roblox, where people have, phones and game consoles and whatnot to access it.
Yeah. The game I was thinking of was Rec Room. So if you have a Quest, definitely check it out. It's a pretty cool experience, and also to a certain degree, kind of reminds me of what Facebook could do with Horizons if it wanted to. I don't know if that's the direction they'll go, but anyways, that's neither here nor there. What do you think the timetable is on something like this? Because when I think of Metaverse, and when I think of what I would envision a really just perfect definition or experience that I would define as a metaverse, I don't think of putting a headset on and putting a controller in my hands, because that still feels like I'm using something artificial. I think more of placing myself into a true alternate reality, and then we're getting into real science fiction. Then we're talking about implants and stuff that tap into our senses and override what we're actually seeing and experiencing. I'm not sure that's necessarily where Facebook is expecting to go right now, but is there any indication whatsoever as far as, like, is this a 10-year project? Is this a 5-year project? What do you think?
That's a really good question. I think it will be hard to tell. And I would imagine that it's actually more of a case where the metaverse is going to sort of sneak up on us.
Yeah. Right.
Where it's going to be more iterative, and they're going to roll out more social worlds in VR and more gaming worlds. And suddenly you realize you spend more and more time, and then you do other things. And then maybe that is the metaverse, right? Building something that's like full fleshed out and perfect technology, and then say, here, this is the metaverse, go and use it. That's sort of destined to fail. And we've seen that in the past with like social experiences and worlds. People may remember Second Life, right? Where it was like, you can do anything, you can meet brands, and you can do, and most of those things people didn't actually want to do. And the blank canvas can be sort of intimidating and scare people off. If you give them more limited use cases and then expand that over time, that may be the better way to get there. And it might also be a way to get there a lot faster.
Yeah. Who knows? Horizons might be Metaverse 1.0. Once it's actually available for everyone to use. We'll see. And then you got to get over the whole Facebook thing too, because like I've got a Quest. I have like a dummy Facebook account that allows me to play the Quest, but I do not use Facebook for any social anything. And in order to participate in this, one would imagine Facebook's really going to require that. If they're requiring you to have a Facebook account in order to even use your Quest 2 headset, they're definitely going to require a Facebook account to tap into their metaverse. So that's going to be a large hill for a lot of people to climb. Janko Roettgers, it's really great to get you on. I'm a big fan of your work. Protocol.com. If people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
On Twitter, I'm Janko, Jank, and then at some point, instead of an O, I decided for a 0, because why make it easy? So, but you can also Google it. Just Google my name and Twitter, and you'll find me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, folks. Thank you. And up next are our stories of the week. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Endava. And Season 2 of Endava's podcast, Tech Reimagined, is out now. Tech Reimagined brings together leading tech personalities and industry experts such as Guy Kawasaki, Mary Williams, Alex Hunter, Brian McBride, Tom Gruber, Dave Copeland, Inma Martinez, Viola Llewellyn, and more. The podcast discusses the big questions around technology and its various industries. Guests and hosts will be talking about how these trends impact our everyday lives and how our relationship with technology is constantly reimagined. Check out the episodes Insurance Reimagined, Parts 1 and 2, where guests Ann Norclett and Kevin Crawford discuss the role IT plays in the insurance industry. Or the 2 episodes about the role of AI Reimagined. Boris Sergal and Radu Orgadan talk about the regulations, accountability, and expectations that arise when using AI to solve complex problems. They discuss what the future holds for this technology and for the individuals who are using it on a daily basis. If you're interested in shopping, well, you should catch parts 1 and 2 of Our Shopping Experience Reimagined with guests Thomas Beechin and Jeremy Mays, where they dive into some of the most significant shifts they've seen in consumer behavior over the last 12 months, including the increasing popularity of direct-to-consumer and buy online, pickup in store, and how the shift to digital is pushing people and companies to reimagine the way we shop. Endava has been reimagining the relationship between technology and people. Tech Reimagined explores this relationship on a deeper level with a look at the most recent experiences with technology and its experts. Learn more about how tech is becoming so much more in this world that is constantly growing and changing. It's a podcast you don't want to miss. Subscribe and listen to Tech Reimagined, the podcast from Endava, from wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much to Endava for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, stories of the week. Folks out there, we were just talking about a metaverse, and many of us would be accessing this metaverse through our Oculus devices. The Oculus Quest 2 has officially been put on pause. Facebook is participating in a voluntary recall in coordination with the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission because there have been some consumer complaints of skin irritation from the foam facial interface. So there's, of course, when you get your Oculus Quest 2 in the box, there is an interface that goes into the Oculus Quest 2 that sits atop your face. It's foam, and some people have been experiencing skin reactions. Interestingly, I think what I found interesting about this is that there are some workout programs. And those workout programs, you could end up sweating, and then the foam, and then all of that would concern me. The one that I've used before, and I always forget the name of it because I don't think it's called Superhuman, but because I think that's that email application. But there's one that's like super something. Anyway, or MetaHuman maybe. I don't remember.
Supernatural.
Supernatural. Thank you.
There we go. That's why I'm here, Micah.
Thank you. Yes. You can do the quick searches.
I can do the Google hands while you talk.
So with Supernatural, they will send you a silicone cover rather, that you can put over the top of the foam so that you don't sweat into it. And so I've had that protection for a while on my Oculus Quest 2, and I wonder if that's why I have not experienced this skin irritation. But what Facebook is doing is putting a pause on the sales, shipping out in the box an actual silicone cover, and then you can go online and get a cover that will go over your the facial interface that comes with it. Interestingly, so I bought the Fit Pack thingy, where you can get the
where you get the silicone thing with it, right? Don't you?
No, but
no, that's right. You don't. You got the
just
phone
get
with
some
that
different
as well.
sized ones,
Right.
and so when I went online to get the replacements that they were sending, or the covers that they were sending, it said, "Do you use the standard one?" And I do. My partner does not, and so I said, "No, I don't use the standard one." And so they shipped out silicone covers for the other ones and for the standard one. So my mind, I think everybody should just do that, because what happens if you decide to buy the Fit Pack later?
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
I already put in for mine, and I got the regular one because I don't have the Fit Pack. But
if you ever
I wish I had known this. Where were you 2 days ago?
I'm so sorry. Yeah. So that's just a little tip. And I imagine that going forward, if you buy the Fit Pack, it's going to come with silicone covers.
Yeah.
But if you're in the in-between right now would be a good time to make sure that you just say, no, I don't just use the standard one, because they're sending one out for all of the different sizes.
Yeah.
I find this interesting because I would love to know a little bit more about the CPSC complaints to figure out if this is specifically people who use this device for working out, if it does have something to do with the sweat mixing with the foam, or if it's just the foam on its own, if it's a specific allergy. I believe Vice was one of the companies who one of the outlets who tried to get a little bit more information, and Facebook wasn't really providing much more information about what specifically they think is in this foam that is causing the issue. And so it's still a little bit, we don't know really what's going on. Facebook isn't being specific about what it is in the foam that could be causing this issue. My question for you is including a silicone cover in the box enough of a fix, or should they be rethinking their formula, that is foam formula, to be more There are so many groans / chuckles in the studio right now that you all are not hearing, and I'm sorry that you can't hear that.
I appreciated it. Okay.
There you go.
Appreciated it. Burke is groaning in Slack, by the way, so even you can't hear it. You can just read it on the screen.
So, yeah, do you think that's enough? Because here's my other question. How many recalls do you not hear about that maybe you should have heard about? You know what I mean? Have you ever had a recall pop up and you finally hear about a recall
on something that you have?
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, this was like 2 years ago. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Totally. I've experienced
that's happened
that for
before.
sure. Yeah.
And so they don't necessarily do because of course, for folks who don't know, these recalls, be they voluntary or involuntary, involve a lot of regulation around how you have to reach out and communicate with the consumer. But even still, sometimes folks don't get this information. And so there's all of this that plays in it. So I don't know, maybe they'll be including a note in it that says you need to put this silicone cover on. But I'll go ahead and answer my own question. I don't think it's enough to just include a silicone cover in the case. I feel like, because especially given how I have used the silicone cover, and it is not as comfortable as the foam.
Okay.
So I almost want to, create my own custom foam, you know what I mean, to go over it, because it's not as comfortable resting on the face for as long. So
well, there is also the aspect of, has the foam given you problems yet?
It has not for me.
You can still continue to use it, but I suppose you're taking a risk.
Yeah,
that's why you want to know a little more.
Yeah, I want to know
if
what
there's
is
something going on there.
If there's a chemical that eventually will affect everyone, or if it's like people who have allergies to it. I don't want to rub it up against my face if it's a possibility for anybody to be affected by it.
Yeah, we need to know more information as far as that's concerned. I don't VR enough. I guess my thought based on absolutely nothing is that it probably would not happen to me because I don't VR enough to like sweat that much. Although I definitely don't VR in like a workout sense.
Oh, so you haven't ever used it for that?
No, but then at the same time, I play games like Beat Saber, and you can work up a sweat.
Yeah.
And even lower physical intensity games can still make the unit heat raise. And so there are some times where I take the thing off and like I've got that hot face feeling, you know, and I don't know if I was sweating. I probably was to a certain degree, but my face just kind of feels warm. Mm-hmm. And so I could totally see if someone is really active in VR and going and sweating, I could see how that might interact, but that's all a guess. We don't really know exactly what's going on. If there's something, some sort of toxic something that's involved with the foam that's included there. And I've not used the silicone to know whether it's a reasonable alternative or less comfortable or whatever. Like you said, sounds like you've experienced both sides, so you kind of know that one is, feels better than the other. But I mean, from my perspective, I was like, okay, well, the silicone doesn't do that, so that seems like a good alternative. But I want to know more. I want to know more about what's going on there.
Hashtag fix your foam. That's how I feel about it.
Fix the foam.
Even if it says approximately 5,700 reports of skin irritation.
Okay.
If it's causing skin irritation, then I think you need to.
There's something going on. Yeah. What is the commonality there? There is something, but it's not everybody. Right. Not everybody that's using this foam. So. Yeah, there's something strange there.
They also say, quote, the vast majority of cases are mild and should resolve on their own. I don't care if I get one bit.
I don't want to have to resolve anything.
Your foam should not be doing this to me.
Totally. Maybe they'll start including a fan that blows. No, that's going to be bad for your eyes.
Oh, yeah, dries your eyes.
Yeah, don't do that. But
again, we don't know if heat or sweat is what causes this. It could just be, we don't know that the complaints that people have put in are people who are sweating into it. It may just be someone who has it on their face for long enough. So yeah, that's the thing, is that there's not a whole lot of information about this.
Right.
And that's what makes it troubling for me, is that I would like to know more about it so that I feel comfortable using it with even the silicone cover over the top of it.
Yeah. And I mean, just a word of like encouragement when you get new technology, it's always a great idea to fill out that registration card. I mean, with Oculus, you're doing it through their site, so they have a very easy way to get in touch with you. It's probably through your email. I can't remember if I got an email.
That's how I got mine.
I don't even know that I noticed an email. I just saw the story and immediately logged into my account and ordered the
I got an email on July 27th that let me know about it, and then it also had instructions for how to go, like where to go in my settings to do it.
Right. But it's really easy when you get technology to get that registration card and to not do anything with it. And that, on certain pieces of technology that aren't as connected as something like the Oculus Quest, that's how they get in touch with you. That's how you find out about these recalls.
Or a safety recall for a vehicle where you get it in the mail.
Yeah.
And then you just glance over it.
Right. So a little bit of that responsibility falls on the consumer to at least do that. It doesn't take very long. It's easy to think, it's not going to be necessary. I've totally done that. I'm totally guilty. I'm speaking from experience. I've gotten those registration cards and meant to do it later. And then eventually it ends up in the trash and it never ends up happening. But this is part of the reason why they exist. So important to do that.
Agreed.
So that you're notified.
So there you go. There's your PSA. Be careful with your Oculus Quest 2. Go ahead and apply for that silicone cover. Even if you're not getting any rashes or anything like that, get that silicone cover.
Apply directly to the forehead.
Yes, and apply the silicone to your Oculus Quest 2 before you apply it directly to your forehead.
Right.
All right. Up next, we've got Jason's story of the week. Jason Howell, what is your story of the week?
Well, so this may have been old news. I think this was like a couple of weeks old, but of course I was out of town and I stumbled across it and just thought it was kind of interesting. I think it's also very timely right now with the news of Simone Biles, a gymnast who backed out at the U.S. Olympics for mental health reasons. There's a new study by the Journal of Adolescence. It's out now that finds that teenagers' loneliness has increased significantly in the past half decade. It's surveyed between 2012 and 2018. So it doesn't include, this isn't even factoring in COVID year.
Right. Yeah.
Where
Can you say that again? I think that's important.
Yeah, well, it's 2012 to 2018. It stops at 2018. That's 2 years before the COVID lockdown. So this is everything before then, or a couple of years before COVID lockdown. But this is, at least according to the study, and I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. It's true. This is largely the time where smartphone usage, smartphones in general, have become commonplace in the 1 million 15 to 16-year-olds that they surveyed. So they surveyed quite a few. 2012 was really one of those marquee years where smartphone ownership actually surpassed 50% in the U.S. And I mean, that's only continued to climb, only to continue to be more and more of a thing that 15 and 16-year-olds especially have. That's about the time, by the way, that my wife and I have said we want to hold off on smartphones with our children until at least like ninth grade, if we can, which is going to be really hard because that's just not how parents do it handle this with their kids these days. Right. I'm amazed that when my daughter was in fifth grade, there were students in her class that had cell phones, and there's certain reasons to have them. Yeah. But you got to be really vigilant because it's really easy to lose, for them to lose themselves in something like this. And I think this study kind of speaks to that. Prior to 2012, all these trends were flat, but between 2012 to 2018, 2 times the amount of teens showed high levels of school loneliness, which is actually a predictor of depression, of mental health issues. And, I can only imagine, this past year, how this study would be looking back, in a couple of years, looking back on this past year, what that's going to do to the numbers. But full disclosure, this study is it's imperfect. In some ways, it does sound like it's painting with a broad brush. But having said that, there's some pretty obvious, correlations, at least in my mind. The study showed the increase in school loneliness was attributed largely to the smartphone and internet usage, and primarily the fact that they have that on them at all times. The study did not, however, ask at all about social media. So we don't know anything about social media specifically. But, just kind of looking anecdotally, there's a lot of social media on these phones as well. That largely social media is built around the idea of increasing usage with every use, really kind of hooking you in and pulling you in. And 15 to 16-year-olds are certainly within the age the social media platforms are allowed to have them as users. I think it's 13 and up, so it's not like it plays no role, but the study doesn't mention it. So, that there's your grain of salt. So let's see here. Decreased emotional closeness when compared to in-person interaction due to the usage of cell phones, according to the study. Also, the exclusionary influence that's often found sometimes in, things like social media. There's a certain level of that. Most of the students in the study did not report increased loneliness, even though the report is, somewhat alarming. Still, at the end of the day, it's more like 1 or 2 out of every 5 students actually reported this. So the majority of students, okay. But it's the ones that are not that is increased, two times as much in the past, however, 6 or 7 years. Obviously, not every student feels this way, but the ones that do, they're the ones that deserve the attention, right? In the same way that Simone Biles deserves to have everybody really understand her reasons and her rationale for pulling out on mental health reasons. So I just thought it was an interesting way to kind of tie something that's very current with this study and really just kind of pays some attention to the value of mental health and the fact that not everybody is on the same level when it comes to mental health, and that it's an important thing, and it's important to understand what's going on with our kids and how we teach them how to use this technology and to use it in a way that allows them to feel better about themselves and not the other way. I don't know.
There's so much here. I think it would be interesting to see over the, now that they've done, what was it, up to 2018, to start from 2019 and go for those 5 years at some point, because I think along with the changes in smartphone usage and everything that's involved there, there's also an increase, there continues to be an increase in awareness of mental health concerns and some of the verbiage and some of the understanding of it. So if we look back, you have to wonder how many of these students know what it means when you are talking about loneliness, when you're talking about depression. There's a certain subjective nature to it versus an objective nature to it, and how that self-reporting might factor into this. And as we learn more about depression and loneliness and isolation, just as a species altogether, as we get more definitions for these things that we feel, if we will also see an increase in the reporting. In the same way that there are new terms. There are terms that have. Let me reverse this a little bit. There are identities and different ways of identifying oneself that have existed forever, but the actual words and methods used to describe those things are only just now becoming more and more available, and folks are being able to describe themselves a little bit more. So I am curious how that plays into it. But then we also do have to look at both the anthropological and psychological aspects of this in terms of our much longer history as a species of being part of these little groups of humans, these hunter-gatherer tribes, these tribal groups, and how that was a very healthy way for us to be able to communicate with one another and kind of grow together.
Certainly very practiced.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, we find these new ways of communicating, but it goes against, it's almost insidious because it goes against what we are used to, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Evolutionarily, it goes against what we're used to, but it seems to fill in those things that we're missing. So I can be at home and communicate with you in the same way that if we were in a tribal group together, I would communicate with you. And so it feels like it's the same thing.
Right.
But that face-to-face connection and all of the things that are involved with that, us reading each other's physical responses, et cetera, are not in that.
Yep.
And so, I just think there's a lot here that we're going to continue to see the impact of as we go on. And so it's good that there are folks out there who are being vigilant about screen time and about just trying to be observant of the way that it can impact individuals. Even in my time of working from home and then coming back to the studio, I was just talking to my partner about this the other night. I have noticed in myself an actual increase in energy and an increase in sort of like feeling like I've accomplished something simply because of that kind of stepping away from home to do a thing and then going back.
Yeah, right.
That separation of work and home, and also just the idea of having places to go and things to do. That alone has been an improvement. And on the face of it, all the same work got done. So it would seem like everything's good and jolly. But the fact is that connection and that drive are very important psychologically. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you could list all the things that you accomplished on a piece of paper and they'd be the same in both sides. But on one, there's an enlightenment or an enrichment.
Enrichment, yeah, that's a
I
good
think
way.
is the better word that you detect. Yeah, and kind of what you were talking about just a few minutes ago. This denoted increased social connection but decreased emotional closeness. So kind of exactly what you're talking about, right? Like in these, they have the ability through their phone, or we all have the ability through our phone to communicate with any number of people. So
we talk all the time.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to accept that even though I talk to 100 people online, I feel lonely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
and
that's
you almost
the difference.
don't even want to admit that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like, I don't understand why I would feel lonely.
How is that even
loneliness.
possible?
Exactly.
I've got 100 people that I'm talking to on screens.
Right.
But it's just a different, that emotional closeness is lost that you do get from in-person interaction. But anyways, I fully admit this report is probably not perfect, and there are probably a lot of holes to poke in it. I just thought it was a good launch pad for a topic that's pretty important right now, very, very top of mind the last couple of days around mental health. So thought I would share that.
Excellent.
But we have reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. We do this show every week. You can find it, which is, it's right there in the name, so that makes sense. Every Thursday, twit.tv/TNW is the site to go to if you want to subscribe. Audio, video, you can link out to YouTube and watch us there, or live, twit.tv/live. That works too.
And if you would like to get all of our shows ad-free, what? There's a way to do that? And also support the TWiT network as a whole? Well, you've got to check out Club TWiT. Join the club, join the fun, join Club TWiT. For $7 a month, you will get every TWiT show ad-free. You get access to the exclusive TWiT Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. And you can join the members-only Discord server where we've got folks chatting, hosts, producers, folks at TWiT, and all of the fine members of Club TWiT all hanging out. We've got show channels so that you can chat with us along while we're doing the show, plus all sorts of different things. Games, there's a chess channel, there's a Let's Play channel, as well as some different topical channels, including, let's say, anime, data science, hardware hacking. There's so much going on in there. For $7 a month, you get all of that, and you get that warm, fuzzy feeling of knowing you're supporting TWiT directly, which gives us here at TWiT warm, fuzzy feelings too. So thank you to all of you Club TWiT members, and to those of you who are going to sign up after hearing us talk about it. twit.tv/Club TWiT to check it out. If you would like to follow me on social media, I am at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network. Check out Smart Tech Today, which I will be hosting later today with Matthew Casanelli, and iOS Today, which I will be hosting tomorrow with Rosemary Orchard. What about you, Jason?
Well, I'm just on Twitter at Jason Howell and doing other shows in the network. Actually, yesterday, popped on kind of unexpectedly onto This Week in Google and had a great time with the crew there. So twit.tv/TWIG, but usually all about Android. Twit.tv/AAA, and then sometimes reviewing stuff on Hands on Tech. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing a couple of desktop synthesizers that I'm really excited about. So I'm going to be comparing a few. So check back then. That's twit.tv/HOT. Big thanks to everyone who helps us do the show. John Ashley, John Slanina, Burke was in here a little bit ago. Ant was in here. So many people help us behind the scenes. So thank you. And thanks to you for watching and listening. We'll see you next week on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
I almost forgot.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I want to tell you about my show, Hands on Photography, here on TWiT TV. Each and every week, Thursday that is, I like to sit down and share with you the best tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer. And it's not always about Photoshop. It's not always about just having the biggest and baddest and bestest camera. It can be the simplest of things, like leave your eye open when you're looking through the viewfinder. All of these simple tips can really help step your photography game up. So subscribe to the show today. That's twit.tv/hop. And I look forward to talking to you soon.